Bringing you news and information suppressed by the corporate-controlled media. This is Volcania Radio with Richie Allen.
Let's welcome back to the programme Gerald Celente. Gerald, you're very welcome, sir. How are you?
Oh, thanks for having me, Richie, and thanks for the kind words.
Not at all. They're all true. It's not brown-nosing here, mate. They're all true. Well, the last time we spoke was in May. Much has happened since then. You've published the summer TrendsJournal. We'll talk about that as well. I've just been speaking to Peter Tatchell, who's a great advocate for human rights here in London. And we talked about deja vu all over again. Big, scary boogeymen in the Middle East, Gerald, that we should all be terrified of. You and me should be underneath our tables now, cowering down, because the bad brown-skinned men are going to kill us, unless we bomb the bejesus out of them, basically.
Well, of course, everybody saw the beheadings and they all bought it. Beheadings are bad, but bombings are good. Let me get the numbers right over here. How many people did the United States under George Bush and Cheney and Blowhard Blair kill in Iraq based on lies that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction and ties to Al-Qaeda, plus Afghanistan, where they were going to hunt down Osama bin Laden and bring him to justice? And how about Libya? Oh, you forgot Libya, huh? Yeah, the one brought to you by that little chicken hawk Cameron, slimy Sarkozy and Obama. How many people did they bomb to death? Only a couple of million, maybe. But who's counting? Bombs are okay. Oh, hey, Obama's drones just wiped out 14 suspected militants in Pakistan. Drones are okay, too. Oh, and how about that lovely little war started by Netanyahu that destroyed Gaza? 1.8 million people living in an area 7 miles wide by 25 miles long. Only about 2,100 a month ago, and over 500 children. But don't behead anybody. Ooh, beheading's bad. But you could slaughter anybody you want any other way. Depleted uranium, Tomahawk missiles, cruise missiles, but no beheading. They're going to get you.
The mind boggles, Gerald. We were talking earlier on in the show. I know you've been doing other interviews. You wouldn't have been listening to me, but we were talking about the fact that the media is gone now and waved goodbye to the devastation that you just described there. And these folks, and I often get angry, like you do, and I start shouting at myself. I start looking in the mirror and shouting at myself that these are real people. They're not cardboard cutouts. They're real people with beating hearts and emotions and lives. And they're left there, as you described in that area, with no homes. Running water is a distant memory. Illness, the sickness that grows in these areas when you have such devastation there. And the media is gone. There's no focus. There's no talk of what to do about it and how to help those people there.
The media is disgusting. That's why I call them prostitutes. All they are whores for the corporate people that pay their way. That's all. They still do anything to screw us as long as they get paid to do it. How come no one's talking about what's caused these conditions? Iraq has been totally destroyed. As I said, depending on whose numbers you look at, over 1 million people have been killed. Entire cities destroyed. ISIS, who are these people? Where do they come from? Imagine if you lived in Iraq and the United States and the UK and the rest of its coalition of the willing blew apart your city, slaughtered everyone that you love, your husband, wife, children, parents, cousins, aunts, uncles, friends. They killed them all. You think you'd want to get even?
Yeah. Well, you joined. I mean, if it was me and you, Gerald, living in the Bronx, and it happened to me and you, and our families and our baby sisters were blown to pieces, and some bloke across the street said, "Hey, Richie, hey, Gerald, we can get back at these guys, I mean, it's a no-brainer. Yeah, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, sign me up.
Sign me up, yeah.
Yeah.
What about
the arrogance, Richie, going on now? The mass psychology of stupidity is beyond the realm of any comprehension. But the people are all buying it. You look at the polls in the United States, over 71% of the people are for it. Bombs away, not a peace song being heard, not a peep about peace. And you read Obama's speech or listen to it at the United Nations yesterday. It was right out of the mouth of a warmonger. I outlined the entire speech. It's nothing more about it is a piece of propaganda that Goebbels would have been proud of.
Let me ask you this. How can, and I want to talk to you in a few minutes about solutions, because we're about solutions here, and I know you are as well, about the way around these people. What about the fact that, how can we expect people to be horrified and disgusted by it when you are, I watch your YouTube broadcast, which is magnificent, by the way. I want to congratulate you on it. We'll link to it. It's a terrific, I suppose it's like a podcast, a video cast that Gerald does. We'll direct you to, you probably watch it anyway, but we'll direct you to it on YouTube if you haven't seen it before. So you have people like Michael Brown in Ferguson being shot to death for nothing by a police officer. And you have Kelly Thomas in Los Angeles earlier in the year beaten to death by 7 or 8 cops, tased on the ground, humiliated, murdered. And you don't see American people marching en masse to the state capitol to protest that. How can we expect them to give a damn about some people in Libya and Syria and Iraq who get killed if they don't give a damn about their brothers and sisters in their own country?
No, you're right. Oh, and by the way, those what we put on YouTube, what we do is each week we put one of our Trends in the News broadcasts. We do those weekdays. Every weekday I do Trends in the News. And then we put them up from time to time on YouTube. But when you subscribe to the TrendsJournal, you get those every night. Why don't the people protest? Look what the country looks like. We're the most obese nation in the world. We're prescription drug addicted. We take more psychotropic drugs than anywhere else. The fighting spirit's gone. I mean, you think of the names. I have an office over here. It's an old A&P kind of supermarket with the big windows. And I watch people go by all day long. And I see whales, elephants, hippopotamuses.
Oh, Jesus.
No, I'm serious.
I know, I shouldn't laugh. I know you.
It's a freak show. And here's what they're doing. They're either texting, talking, or eating as they're walking, or drinking these big, ugly things in plastic cups that come from Dunkin' Donuts around the corner. Totally missing the beauty of what's around them, or life that's around them. It's a world of iPhone when you think of the name, and selfies, self-indulgent. People are totally disconnected. Propaganda is a good business to get into because you could do it cheaply and get great results. Because people are so out of tune and disconnected. So they're not going to march on anything. They could hardly walk. And I'm not saying that, to be snotty or sarcastic. I'm saying it in all truth. There was no such thing as type 2 diabetes with children when I was a young man. There was no such thing as people driving down the aisles of supermarkets on electric carts because they're too obese to walk. So when you're looking at what the people are eating, what they're doing, the entertainment they're listening to, what they're tuned into, do you really think they're going to fight for courage, dignity, and self-respect when they don't have it themselves?
Now, you sound incredibly pessimistic, but I know the opposite is true. You wouldn't do the work you do and you wouldn't publish the journal unless you felt that there's a way out of it. Now, I know in the journal you're predicting what's coming. accurately as it has been over the years, predicting what's actually coming. But you wouldn't do that if you didn't feel that something good would come of it, Gerald. So where's the light at the end of the tunnel here?
You know, with what's going on in Israel, and I started looking up the colonization that took place, that began under Theodor Herzl, who was born in Pest, who's now Budapest. And it's basically a colonization by the Eastern European Jews. And so I started looking it up, about Zionism. And they put Theodor Herzl as the father of Zionism. Love him, hate him, agree or disagree, one man made a difference. One person. And it's throughout history it's like that. One person can make a difference. So what I'm saying, I said what I said in answer to your question, why aren't the masses marching? What we're going to be doing on May 2nd, 2015, from the most historic corners in the United States, the only place on each corner where there is a pre-Revolutionary War stone building on the corner of John and Crown Street. We're closing down the streets. We have the permission from the city. And we're launching Occupy Peace. And it's based on 3 words. No foreign entanglements. These are the words that aren't mine. These are the words from George Washington, a real commander-in-chief, not like that little boy you got over there, Cameron or Obama, plays golf and basketball. This is a man that led the charge and fought in war, knew what bloodshed looked like and didn't want any more of it. And then people say, well, it was a different time back then. No, it wasn't. The world was at war back then as well. No foreign entanglements. What can you do? What we're doing is we're launching Occupy Peace May 2nd. But unlike many of these other movements, we're going to be providing takeaways, things that everybody there that attends or tunes into can do to change the course of history. What we're going to do, and the plan is that, and we're working on the details, is that the United States will never go to war again unless the people vote for it. We want to vote to close down all the bases overseas. We want to bring home all the troops. And I'm not a pacifist, just to make it clear. As you may or may not know, I had my own close combat school for many years. Yeah. And have been a practitioner for many more. So, I'm a self-defense guy. But I don't start fights. If I have to protect myself, I'll do everything I can to do that. So I'm not talking in terms of pacifist. I'm talking about self-defense, defense of a nation, not attacking other nations that are no threat to me or haven't attacked me. For example, like Syria. The United States has declared war against Syria under the phony line of ISIS. And when you look at the details of how Obama and Kerry and Cameron and the rest have been wanting to overthrow Assad, the facts are all there. They couldn't pull it off when they tried to use the lie that he killed his people with chemical weapons. It was Putin that brought about peace when he talked Assad into destroying all his chemical weapons. He did. That wasn't good enough. So now they're bombing Syria. This is against international law. But who cares? If Israel could kill anybody they want and steal what they want in breaking international law as they are in violation of the Fourth Geneva Convention and many, many, many UN resolutions, so could the United States and the UK as they did with the invasion of Iraq and now Syria.
Because nobody's going to do anything about it. You just said it there. I had Claire Daly on last night. She's a well-known politician in Ireland, a rare breed of politician, somebody with integrity. who tells the truth. And, I asked her, was it debated in the Irish Parliament yesterday about whether or not it was legal for the United States to start bombing targets inside Syria? And she made the salient point, Gerald, what difference, as you just said there, what difference does it make whether it's legal or not? They're going to do it anyway. Nobody's going to take them on. There'll be no talk whatsoever amongst European countries of punishing the United States in terms of, sanctions, not buying things from it, preventing it from getting things from Europe. None of that at all. Doesn't matter that it's illegal. We're just going to do it anyway.
Exactly, because you have corrupt governments in charge. And that's all it is. These are no democracies. They're run by criminal operations that are fronts for the International Mafia Federation, better known as the IMF, and the Wall Street Gang. That's all this is. It's a fascist takeover, the merger of state and corporate powers. And when you read the facts and look at the details, what do you think the United States and its so-called coalition of the willing invaded Iraq because their major export was broccoli?
Yeah. I could never understand what... You remember that so-called coalition of the willing, and I remember seeing the names of some of these countries. And some of these countries, I'm not ashamed to admit this now, Gerald, I'd never heard of them. Like Palau, for one. I'm like, what the hell are Palau doing getting involved in an incursion into Iraq, even if if they really are? And it's the same this time around. They talk about, well, we're working with our partners in the Middle East, but they're not doing anything. It's American bomber planes over Syria. And these guys are basically acting as cheerleaders, Qatar and Saudi Arabia. They're not getting involved. They're not doing anything. It's the United States Air Force pilots and their planes dropping these bombs. There's no coalition, really.
Well, look at the countries you mentioned. Saudi Arabia. Hey, you want to talk about beheading? They beheaded 22 people in August, those Saudis. Hey, but those were good beheadings.
Yeah.
They beheaded adulterers. Oh, they got some people for black magic. And hey, how about some drug deals, huh? Hey, but they're the kings. They're okay. And by the way, when you look at the rest of the so-called coalition, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, these are the Arab Little League. These are the people that have been trying to overthrow Assad now since 2011 and that have provided those so-called rebels with a cause, with the armaments to destroy this ancient civilization of the Syrians as they've done without a peep from the prostitutes. And they're the ones that set the ground swell for ISIS and other groups. Again, they call them militant groups. These are people that were prisoners under the occupation of the United States. Yeah. These are people whose families are wiped out. This is a free-for-all country that's been destroyed. These are gangs. And what they're doing, and I wrote about this in my book, Trends 2000 in 1996. I wrote about it in the TrendsJournal beginning in 1993. It's another Crusades 2000. You remember the infidels? I got a better name for you. Islamic State. They pin a religious name on it so the simpletons could find a religion and another people to hate.
Yeah. And, of course, the implications of the name Islamic State is it scares the unintelligent and the uninformed into thinking that, God, these people could be on our shores, they could be at our doors in a year's time, threatening to turn America into an Islamic State. You're absolutely right. Now, I know you're pressed for time, so I'm just going to make a couple of quick points, and then you're off to do more of these. A listener texted in to say, you mentioned Herzl and Washington. Of course, Herzl was a Rothschild gopher, and George Washington, of course, was a top Freemason, far from being the founding father that people think he was. Do you have any comment on that?
Well, yeah, it's... look, I know the atrocities that were committed in America. They slaughtered the Native Americans. Where I'm over here in colonial Kingston, it's called the Stockade District because they put a stockade up after the Esopus Indians burnt down the place to get the Dutch out of here, so they put up a stockade. I'm familiar with all that. I know the atrocities that were committed, but there were a lot of positive things that came out of this country too. Why do you think people from all over the world wanted to come here? It was really the place where you had freedom of speech. It was really the land of opportunity. I mean, you could go back to the history of every nation and see how it was the indigenous people was slaughtered. I'm aware of that. But there were good things that happened later on, and those things are gone.
Yeah.
A Freemason, whatever he might have been. But look who was ruling it, and look what they were doing. And look at the atrocities the Crown was committing here. And they're doing the same thing now. Just like you saw at the Boston Marathon bombing, of all places, Boston, where they went house to house without any warrants and forced people to leave their homes or stay inside of them. This is what the colonists fought against that the English were doing. So America had a lot of bright lights of freedom that the rest of the world didn't have. There's negatives and positives in everything.
So you don't agree with those who think that maybe this was a long-term plan, that it's always been the plan?
No. Look, one of my chief writers is Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, the former Assistant Treasury Secretary under Reagan. These are guys that have been there. What you see is what you get. And we talk about it. He said nobody wants to admit that the freak show these aren't his word, these are mine. But in essence, no one wants to believe that what they see is what they get. And the freaks that they're looking at are the freaks that are running the show. And are there deals going on behind the scene? Of course there are. He called me up one night, maybe about 2 months ago, and I'm looking at the newspaper, and there's Obama's national security team. And I said to him, Craig, are these the people really making the decisions, or is there something else going on behind the scene? Now remember, this is a guy that could call in and did the director of the CIA and question him under oath, all right? So just to put it into context. And he said to me, Gerald, he said, what you see is what it is. They're making the decisions. But the people don't want to face the truth. So they want to think something else is going on behind the scenes. And as he said, of course things are going on. But that's not where the decisions are being made and where the seeds are being planted. He said, these are the people that are in charge.
Now, you know from speaking to me over the years that while I love you and your work, I'm not convinced of that, but I'm not going to argue with you about it because we agree to disagree. Yeah,
Richie, it's not me. I'm telling you with Dr. Paul Craig Roberts.
Oh, no, I know that, and I don't doubt you for a minute. I'm not contradicting you at all.
That's why I leave it. I say to anybody, this is what he told me. This is a guy that was there, and you see the work that he does and how he speaks out. A brave man of courage. There is no one, just to make this clear, no one that I look up to more for geopolitical and economic insights than Dr. Paul Craig Roberts.
We are, I say we're out of time. You're running off to do another one of these anyway. I want to mention again, TrendsResearch.com. Do subscribe to the journal. It is well worth it. And when you do, as Gerald said, you'll get the videos every night. But go and look at Trends in the News on YouTube as well. It's terrific stuff. Gerald, thanks for coming on, mate. Enjoy the rest of your week there in New York. And please don't leave it so long before you come back again.
No, thanks for having me on, Richie, and all the best. And thank you for all that you're doing.
Wake up and smell the coffee at volcaniainternational.com.